Good afternoon and welcome to More Than Meets the Eye. I'm your host, Blind Prime, and for today we're going to be covering Studio Series 86 Springer in armored truck mode and Siege Springer in armored truck mode. And we'll be talking about both of these sets, both of these figures, and the pros and cons and what they did differently compared to the previous set. So 86 is the new one, and Siege is the old one. 86 is the leader class, and Siege is the Voyager. 86 has had some special attention brought to it, and Siege Springer was just Siege Springer. All right. Those qualifications being stated. Hi, I'm Blind Prime. I raise awareness for the blind and the visually impaired through alternative means and methods, and this is including to, but not limited to, Transformers and discussing their vehicle modes. So please go below and help me help the blind and the visually disabled by hitting the like button, sharing, and subscribing. And of course, I always enjoy hearing from you. So leave a comment and we'll have a chat. It'll always be fun. Ask me anything. I'll be able to answer them to the best of my ability. Don't go asking me to prove any of Einstein's theorems. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But if you ask me about Transformers or about blindness or about G.I. Joe or about Lego, then I'll be able to answer those questions pretty well. And there's an extra stick over here. I'm just going to set that down over there. There we are. Okay, so all those things being said, the qualifiers being mentioned, let's get into today's video. I think it's a fun one. And also, I'm going to point out some things that you can do now that you have two Springers, if you got two Springers. Because there is something I've always wanted to do with my Springer, and I've always not been able to do it because I thought the weapon selection from Siege was kind of crap. I didn't like the fact that we only got one of two types of gun, where I would like to have gotten just two copies of a single one. And what one am I talking about? Well, that's a good segue into us talking about accessories. So let's talk about accessories. Over here on the Siege guy, I have his helicopter blade holder set up to be sort of like a light bar or just a mounting stand for two guns and of course his swords. So we can go ahead and pull this out of the Siege port and talk about it, and talk about what I changed about Siege Springer here. So let's pull the swords off his guns. Nothing special about the swords. They're the same swords. What I did with the guns, though, is when you get Springer, you're going to get two guns. One's going to have a Siege peg at the back to plug into the other gun, which has a Siege port at the back. But I didn't like that. Because mainly when you try to put these guns into this the helicopter stand in any way other than attaching them to Siege ports, you usually can't put them into the mounting for the blades, where the helicopter blade, which is the sword, would stick in by its handle. But with the gappage that happens in this particular type of gun that comes with Springer, you can actually twist the helicopter mounting sideways and plug that in and into where the sword goes. And because of the gaps in there, the waffling they've done, when you plug it into the side, there's a little flap that sticks out, and it stops many Siege weapons from being plugged into this helicopter mounting. But that little flap doesn't matter because it fits into the gap for the gun and makes a solid connection, a good solid connection. And I like that. And you also get these two little rectangular pins that you can plug things like the swords into. So, if you wanted to plug both swords into one side, you could. But, why would you when you can balance it out and plug one sword into one side and one sword into the other? But you can't do this unless you get two Springers. And that's what I wanted to mention is I like switching those guns, and I'm pretty sure one's painted a little differently than the other, but I am a lover of balance sometimes. It's nice to have asymmetry, but in other ways, it's not so nice. And for Siege Springer, it's always not been nice that he only had one of a gun that really worked well for him. And instead they gave him another weapon that didn't really work quite well for him. But it does work quite well for 86 Springer. So let's remove the accessories from Siege Springer. We're just going to set them down over here because we're kind of done with it. Now over here, we have 86 Springer, and I've managed to put all of his accessories there. And since he's kind of like an armored truck, he's an armored car with a big flat trunk, I decided why not just stack the big old bomb and the hammer into that back area and holding it in place with other weapons that are, like the sword, and it just kind of sweeps back over the little back area and allows for this bomb to just, or this missile to just kind of sit in there and be stationary. I think that really works out pretty well. And I do enjoy how you can put all the accessories on this Springer, and it makes this Springer feel more like a warrior going into battle because of just the sheer weaponry he has, and he intends to use all of them until they break or blow up. And so I can imagine him coming back from the field, missing the hammer, missing one of the swords, missing a gun, but or just having a gun that's just completely destroyed. And I think that's just kind of fun. So you can kind of do this guy in many different ways, but let's go ahead and peel off the accessories so we can actually talk about him, just general him. Let's peel off the little fun. I like the helicopter blade. That becomes the tuning fork of desire. You just switch it around, boom. I like the transforming blade. I love it when we get these transforming blades. The last time we got a transforming blade was Nemesis Prime. He came with his sword that transforms into a bird, and I liked that. I really did. So let's go ahead and peel back and get this giant bomb off of here, and the hammer. I like the hammer. I like how hard and heavy the hammer is. They didn't skimp out and make us a hollow hammer, though it will put some force on the joints. So maybe it would have been better if it was a hollow hammer, because then you wouldn't have a character's elbow just constantly going downwards. There's the other sword, and that's all of them but the two little guns. And these are the guns that have siege ports in the back, and you can use them in Siege Springer if you want, because you can just where's your helicopter thing? Good job there. Here it is. So you can just take these two guns and plug each of them into the helicopter sides. Isn't that neat? Yeah. But they don't like to stay, because one of these has a very, very loosey-goosey connection. Actually, both of them have a pretty loose connection there. I thought it'd look cooler, but not with a connection that loose. That's a shame. Okay, let's set the guns for 86 off to left, and guns for Springer Siege off to the right. Now let's compare the two together. Let's see. Vehicle mode wise, their vehicle modes are about the same length. Putting them bumper to bumper, we get that they're basically the same in length. They're also about the same in weight, but 86 Springer has a slight advantage of weight over Siege Springer. Now, 86 Springer here and Siege Springer here, they really don't have much different in this mode from each other, but there are some significant differences, and those are the ones we're really going to try and focus on today. For instance, these vehicle mode has this nice little bumper thing on the front around each of the front wheels. For 86 Springer here, they redesigned the entire thing. We have headlights, but they're now recessed into the front of the vehicle, and I like that. You can kind of get your thumb in there or fingernail in there and feel something back there that feels like maybe it's a headlight or something. And they smoothed many of the textures out of these shoulder pad areas, even going so far as to take out the lug nuts and stuff from around the rim of the wheel, which is a shame. It is a shame. And you got some more textures going on around the back area for the front, but when it comes to textures, the 86 Springer is the lesser of the two. Though the hubcap for 86 Springer is really nice. I like the hubcap for the wheel. I do like the wheel design. Over here on Siege, we've got a different hubcap. It's also a nice hubcap, but it's different. And make sure how different it is. Yeah, the Siege one has a few more textures. So when it comes to the front area where the wheel sits, the front wheel well area, we get a lot more textures on here. We have headlights that are textured differently. They're like popping out of the front of the vehicle mode here instead of recessed in like on 86. And on the sides, we've got a few more textures that were all smoothed out for 86, but the little the little flap on the side of the arm and the little flap on the side of the arm for 86 here are about the same, but 86 seems to have taken and spiced those textures up a notch for this area. It's not too different. It's not too different. It just feels like a better mold casting. Maybe that's what I should say. Because though we get the same textures, they feel more crisp on the 86 Springer than they do on the Siege Springer. Now at the front of the vehicle mode, like where the windshield is and the vents for the engine area in both of these guys is very, very close. The only significant difference is how the vents at the front are cut, whereas a Siege Springer has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, wait, 1, 2, 3, and 4 perfectly even holes in the vents at the front. The 86 Springer instead has 1 and 2 very thin holes, and then 1 and 2 very wide ones at the front of his vehicle mode. So they switch that out, which allows your fingernail to get in there a bit deeper and feel the vents that are back there. And I like myself some vent action. The windshields for both of them are exactly the same. They did not change that piece at all. That's a complete reuse of a piece. Then we come back here to the engine, the big engine for helicopter mode and armored vehicle mode, and the backpack for robot mode. And this is where the biggest change occurs, because in the Siege, we've got a single Siege port and then 2 little vertical ports sticking off on either side, or the little rectangle ones for the swords, and some really fun textures going on here. But that's not that's just about all. We got this step up area and some textures, but very light on the texturing for the Siege one when it came to this top panel. I mean, texturing's there, but not to the degree it is for the front wheels. And you got little vents in the back to be his jetpack jets, 1, 2, and 3. Now on 86 Springer for this part, it's actually different. This is a different piece entirely. We've got some rectangular pegs, holes, and we've got more of these textures for the roof and the helicopter mode area, and you can also fold the side panels down, which is really nice. And they have some really big vents in the back to be epic jetpacks. And there's of course vents on the front to take in air. I like it when they do that, when they give us a vent on the front and a vent in the back, and it takes in air. The textures around where the helicopter blades go, they're there. It's not as significant as Siege, but the textures are crisper. They're more easy to define. They're not as rounded or worn out feeling as they are in the Siege version of Springer. And there's also a spot there where you can plug a blast effect for his engines to have like nitro fuel in. Yeah, and that's kind of fun. And that's neat. I like that. I like the textures here at the roof. And moving into the back little tailgate area for Siege Springer, we've got decent textures, but a lot of this stuff is just really solid on the vehicle rear section. Right after the little backpack, you've got this indent in there, a little triangular indent, which is great for putting that big old missile. It just kind of slides into that place and works out pretty well there. And then we have these nice little smooth sections for the top rear of the vehicle mode. Very well done with some fun textures, because these are supposed to be like the lower leg portions. And then on the sides, we've got a couple of Siege ports and more of those nice wheels with the fun hubcaps, and then we come down to texture of the. Actually, I don't know what that texture is supposed to really be, but it's a fun one. And then we've got here, right behind the front wheel assembly area, and right before we get to the back rear assembly area, we have this portion of the thigh sticking out. And the nice thing about it is with the way they rounded it and smoothed it, I think if they'd given it two little grooves, it would have been a perfect ringer for a gas can, like a spare gas can on each side of this vehicle. I think that could work out pretty well for 86 Springer. Now let's take a look at Seige Springer's rear sections here, and we've got actually a little peg to plug a blast effect into on each side of it, and that's cool. And we also don't really have much more happening. The little triangular indent area is there as well with the Seige, but it's more pronounced in the 86 version. And we've got Seige ports on the side that are in the same spots. Not really much has changed from these legs. And here we have the little thigh area that's sticking out. And for the Seige version, that thigh has got some really nice textures going on in it. And it turns it into less of a gas can feeling thing and more of a side of the vehicle, part of the door feeling thing as the doorway comes down. And I like that. I like I assume these are the doors for this thing, and people climb in behind the front wheel thing and then move forward into the cockpit. That's what I've always imagined. Then again, the cockpit could just be one of those that moves up by itself. And either way, yeah, it's your toy. Imagine it how you will. So those are fun textures, and I do say that that it's missed in 86. How those thighs have no textures, and that is a shame that those thighs have no textures, because I like it whenever they take the time to texture the thighs. It is a nice little thing. But this connection's really good between on the Seige, but it was really hard to get to on the Seige. It was really difficult to get this connection straight and orderly. On the 86, for this backpack, this connection it comes down and it plugs in. It plugs in strong, it plugs in sturdy, you kind of hold him from it. It's good. And it didn't take me long fiddling with it to snap that into place properly. And I really like that. I do believe that this is an improvement on the vehicle mode. And it still is a weird vehicle mode in my opinion, because it's big and wide at the front and it's thin and narrow at the back. And I had one of my subscribers mention how they've always liked a G1 Springer because their armored vehicle was just kind of felt like an armored helicopter without blades. And I'm like, it does kind of feel like that, except they've managed to squeeze the tail in. So I do think that this figure needed to find a way to be wider in the rear section. Just have the ability for the legs to pop out and be even with the front area. I would have definitely shortened the rear section a bit, and in my opinion, kind of made the vehicle mode a little better. I don't know why this is the route that was taken, but this is the route that I discovered while transforming it, and so that's the route I'm assuming they took. So, if I had to give these guys a grade, Seige Springer is definitely a rolls. He's got a lot of Seige ports, so he when it comes to vehicle modes, he's an 8. He's an 8. He's a good sci-fi vehicle. He's a good representation of what people in the 80s thought vehicles would look like in 2005. I kind of love that. 2005 is a long way ago. It's actually when I graduated from high school. So next year is my 20th anniversary of having graduated from high school. That's wild to even consider that. Wow, 20 years. Lots happened. So, grading for the 86 Springer, I'm going to give this vehicle mode a 9 out of 10. I like the vehicle mode. It's a bit stronger. It's a bit sturdier. There's a point taken away or half a point for the thighs not having textures, and a half a point for these connection to the fists not really being the greatest connections. But everything else about this vehicle mode was improved upon. Even the missing textures just made more sense for this being an armored vehicle. My biggest naysay on it is I wish they had at least textured us in some rivets. I'd love me some rivets on these vehicles. I love how there are rivets on most of these vehicles. But yeah, not really so much so on Siege Springer anyway, except there were rivets on his wheels. And I just like things like that. I like the little textures. The little textures can tell you a nice little story. But this has been a really fun vehicle to make. Not the best, and now that I'm playing with it a bit more, I am going to knock mine down to an 8 and say that these things are kind of even. They're very even vehicles. 86, in my opinion, is the better one, but Siege is the better textured one. And it's interesting to actually come across this quandary. I don't come across this very often, where the newly made one is better quality, but at the same time it's less. And it's less because of the lack of textures. The textures really made Siege Springer pop, and 86 Springer needs that pop. But this is the weakest mode, in my opinion. The vehicle, the four-wheeled cars are the weakest modes for this Springer. So next time, in our next episode of More Than Meets the Eye, we're going to discuss the helicopter modes and do a nice compare and contrast like we've done this time. So winner of this compare and contrast will be 86 Springer because I just like it more. It feels better in the hand than Siege Springer. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please, have a great day and enjoy this Christmas season. And I hope that your Friday the 13th is a lucky one. Until next Pride, bye-bye for now.